Crop Talk on Market Journal is supported by Nebraska's soybean farmers and their checkoff. I asked this week and the response was yes. I said, do you have your planter out yet? Apparently a lot of people do thus far as we enjoy these spring-like temperatures. So what is important when you're looking at that planter before we head out into the planting season? Well, we've got an extension expert standing by with the answer to that question. Bill Dodd brings us this story.
It's almost time to get those planters out of the shop and into the fields. However, if you're practicing no-till farming, there are a few steps you can take before planting season arrives to help ensure that the process goes as smoothly as possible. According to Extension Engineer Paul Jasa, there are 4 major factors that you should take into account when getting your planter geared up for planting. The first step is to ensure that residue won't be an issue when you get into the field.
When it comes to cut or handle residue, some producers like to handle residue, putting a residue mover on, push it out of the way. Unfortunately, here in Nebraska, the wind blows, and some of that residue is going to blow back on the row. I'd rather just simply cut the residue. Corn planters today have double disc openers. We need to make sure those 2 disc openers are sharp, working together. And there's directions in the owner's manual how much blade contact they should have. But we need about 1.5 inches to 2 inches of blade contact such that we can cut that residue. And that residue then is nicely cut. The good news is that seedling coming up will come up through that same slot you just cut to put the seed in the ground. Unfortunately, if we use residue movers, we push the residue off. Yes, the seed goes in the ground nicely, but if some residue blows back, there's no slice cut through that residue and the seedling has trouble coming up. So I like to cut the residue with the double disc opener.
Next up on the checklist is to make certain that you're hitting the proper planting depth and achieving uniform depth control. This will rely heavily on making sure that you have the proper amount of down pressure to place seed deep enough into the ground.
If I saw a failure in early days of no-till, people didn't have enough down pressure and weight on the planter unit to get that seed down in the ground. We cut through residue, we cut through some firm soil, we're in no-till or ridge-till, and we need to make sure we got enough down pressure to do that. And so I want to make sure that those discs are sharp working together. It makes it easier to cut, but then enough weight on those openers or springs to transfer weight from the toolbar to those discs so we can get it down in the ground at the desired seeding depth. When it comes to uniformity of depth control, it's really critical for corn. You want all the corn plants to come up at the same time. You don't want one ahead of the neighbor. He's going to be outcompeting the neighbor when it comes to resources for growth. So the more uniform stand you can have, the better yield you'll have because of more uniform use of the resources. Now, something like soybeans, a little more forgiving. Soybeans care more what is going on during pod fill in the fall, so early in the spring, not near as critical. But for corn planters, definitely get that tuned up for uniform depth control.
The third step of getting your planter ready will be to ensure that you're getting the proper seed-to-soil contact. Depending on the type of planter you're utilizing, step 3 may be completed along with the 4th step of closing the seed V.
Well, we got some brands of planters, like the John Deere, will do seed-to-soil contact and close the seed V, steps 3 and 4 at the same time, with the angled closing wheels. We want to evaluate those steps separately. If the seed-to-soil contact is already there, we don't want to tighten those wheels to close the seed V because we'll actually over-tighten, actually pack the seed V such that seedling roots have trouble getting out of there. Now, some other brands of planters do it different ways. Our Case IH planter, for instance, we close the seed V with some crumbling discs on the planter I have here, and then firm it down from the top of the press wheel and back. But I also added a device called a Keaton seed firmer on there that pushes the seed down to give us some seed-to-soil contact. Now we can put a Keaton on any brand of planter out there to help get seed-to-soil contact. But the place I like it more is a uniform depth control because it gets all the seeds to the bottom of the seed V. Step 4 is closing that seed V. And like I said, on the wheels that do both, like John Deere, Kinsey, White, don't over tighten if the seed-to-soil contact's already there. When it comes to closing the seed V, I want to make sure the tailstock of that planter is running level. Those angled wheels have a pinch to them then to bring the soil together. If I'm planting a little bit too shallow or my planter is nose down, those tailstock where those wheels are mounted is not level. It's not going to be near as effective closing the seed V.
Once you're ready to roll, the only thing left to do is get the planter out and conduct a few tests running on the ground about 2 to 3 weeks before planting begins. This will help ensure that you have plenty of time to work out any potential problems that may arise.
So I take it to the field 2 to 3 weeks early, drop the planter in the ground, get the proper level on the planter such that the toolbar's right height and the parallel lengths are running parallel to the ground, and the planter a little bit tail down maybe and back, rather than nose down. Then do what I call blind planting. Just drive forward a little ways, stop with the planter on the ground, and then go check my depth gauge wheels. If I'm truly gauging planting depth, they'll be firm contact with the ground. So just take a hold of them and try to rotate them. Now, if I can rotate it, spin it freely, it means I need more down pressure. I either tighten the springs or increase the air if you got airbags, or just physically add weight. We got sand and insecticide hopper on this planter just to make sure the planter gets down in the ground. Now, conversely, if I take a hold of those wheels and I can't budge them a bit, they are too firm in contact with the ground, they'll actually be packing the soil down around the seed V, and we're going to have trouble getting seedling roots out of there. So that means just because it works 2 to 3 weeks ahead of time, I still check it from field to field because conditions change, the residues change, the soil moisture changes. Now, another reason to do it 2 weeks ahead of time, it shakes up the neighbors. They don't know the planter's empty, and they think they're 2 to 3 weeks behind if you're already in the field. And again, it's the kind of thing, it gives you time to react, to fix the problems. If it was that first day of planting, you're going to have some problems. You either get delayed or you're going to do half a job because you didn't fix it right.
With spring right around the corner, now is the time to ensure that your planter is ready to roll when planting conditions are optimal. Following these steps could save you a headache or two down the road. Reporting for Market Journal, I'm Bill Dodd.